So hello and welcome to this week's episode of Mount Mindset. We've got Jack Gunn on, aka the Vanilla Gorilla. He is going to cover off his story, but how he got into bodybuilding, a chance encounter with a famous bodybuilder who moved to his area by chance, bumped into Jack, asked him to train, and one thing led to another, and he was on stage winning shows, competing with guys that were 5 years older than him and holding his own and taking the wins. So we're going to cover off that journey, how Jack had found himself, how that had developed his introverted character to this guy that can go up on stage and compete with the best of them. And we're going to go into what happened through COVID, what happened with his injury, and what's happening with his recovery. And we're going to cover off some of the perspectives and mind tricks that he was able to apply to get the most out of himself. So without further ado, let's dive right in. There we go. So you were saying that your head was fried for the other day?
Still on the come down, mate. Lots of new information overload. But it's good. It's an enlightenment.
Did you watch a video?
I watched the video. Well, I watched some of the video. I've still got to finish it.
It can be hard going. I mean, I was very much familiar with the world of finance.
Mm-hmm.
So I understood a lot of the parts of it. But even at that, it was a very convoluted, complex story that took a bit of following, so I could get very much how people would maybe need to take a couple of watches at it to let the information sink in.
Even at such a high level, it's really intense. And when you build the capacity to get into the nitty gritty, it's even more like, I think you need to almost prepare yourself for it. And I think not a lot of people are probably ready to read a lot of it.
Well, like for instance, to explain what we're discussing, to anyone, maybe just we're jumping into the middle of a conversation. Me and you had a conversation on the phone, and we were talking about sort of current affairs and what was going on and our views on some of the things that we'd seen. And I'd asked if you'd seen the documentary, The Princes of the Yen. And The Princes of the Yen is very much on point with what's happening with the UK farmers at the moment, where there seems to be some rules that have been written to cause a bit of disruption for an agenda that wants to be met, that seems to be not very well publicised, but when you connect the dots, it seems pretty straightforward, which can be hard for people to get their head round. And I says, well, it reminds me of the book, the famous book that was written called The Princes of the Yen. It was #1 bestseller in Japan for 6 weeks whilst Harry Potter was out. So you can imagine this thing really, really went on a tear. And it was released, I believe, in 1999, and it was written by Professor Richard Werner, a famous economist who basically says that most economists don't really know what they're doing, and why sort of typical neoclassic economics don't sort of work. So his point of view is, if these economists seem to regularly, frequently get it wrong almost all of the time, why are we still giving weight to what they say? And if they are getting it wrong, what are they missing, or what do they not know? So in the book, The Princes of the Yen, it explains the story of how Japan essentially instigated a boom in the Japanese market, and then a huge bust. And to keep the summary short, the bust was created and prolonged, despite some people, including Professor Werner, bringing up solutions to cut the depression, to cut the economic hardship. And the powers that be had said, no, we want to prolong it because we need people to accept the reform, or essentially they wanted people to accept the new rules that Japan were wanting to institute. And people would never accept them if they were in normal conditions. They wanted to essentially create so much pain in the country that people would be willing to accept it, because it would be less pain than the economic turmoil that they were in. So it was a very classic case of, they created the problem, they manufactured the reaction, and they brought up the solution, which was to a means to their own ends. So that's what they did.
An elaborate scam.
Oh, I mean, it's Wall Street. It's like the thug. It's like the mob with suits. So it's the mob with a pen.
It's I mean, you started off there with a conversation about the farmers, and I think I've had a lot of time off recently, and a lot of time to invest into public affairs and what's going on right now, and delve into more honest, unbiased, less controlled sources. And we had this conversation on the phone, And when you break down what's going on with the farmers, it's a theft. It's disgusting, and it's a wealth steal. This take a farmer; they're not money rich; they're asset rich, and it's just a big asset grab. 20% of your asset value, they want to just take and seize.
Yeah,
It's
and I mean,
insane.
how they're doing it is they're essentially I mean, this is the issue that people have with governments. Is governments will will use particular regulation under benign sounding tactics. So things like you must register, you must be licensed, and essentially what they're doing is we want to know who's doing what.
Mm-hmm.
And under the guise, and there's very, very good causes for that. So, like for instance, if you are selling alcohol or fixing motor vehicles, you want to be at a certain standard. So you want to have there is certain things that are regulated. But like anything, these tools can be used for
Wrong.
nefarious reasons or
Yeah.
to push an agenda. So in the farmers' case, what they done was they got everyone they essentially gave them a break to say, right, we're pushing the asset prices up because in the UK, we have developed this property boom, which then fed into the farmers' boom. So like the farmers' land, should I say, the farmers' land prices were going up, but it wasn't affecting proportionally the farmers' income. So what you had is a low income and a high asset value, which the farmer didn't get any benefit of. It was just a function of the wider market. So what they did is they says, well, to protect that, what you should do is you should tell us what your land value is, and you should register that you're a farmer, and we'll protect you. So the farmers go, well, that's good because we are not making huge sums of money, and we do have this asset that seems to be going parabolic, and it seems to be out with our control, and we don't seem to be getting any benefit of that because we're just doing our farmer thing. And when they register, what happens is the government now knows all the asset values because when you register, what's your place worth? What size is it? What do you do? How do you do it? And so on and so on and so on. Now the government has everyone on a book. And when they write the rule to say, well, we are going to do a tax raid. Now you've got a situation where they know, one, what the farmer's income is, what the asset values are, and what's the construct of that rule to demolish and force them to transfer the land. And it's a raid, it's theft, it's,
And it's control as well, because we talked on if you're a farmer, if you have a farm and you're in this position, and you inherit a farm, you have to pay that 20% inheritance tax. Who has the means to pay that? They're not rich people mostly. So we had this discussion in steps. BlackRock, here's a loan, but it's a conditional loan. You must use this fertilizer. You must use these agricultural products. Who, they're the parent company of these child companies, of all these fertilizer companies. It's an absolute control grab, and it's as plain as the nose in your face.
Yeah, and I mean the thing that people don't get is they always go, well, it's about money. Like you've got Vanguard and BlackRock. I mean they have trillions in assets. The people that they operate with have the printing press. They can create unlimited money. So let me tell you, it's not about money. It's always and forever will be about control. So they
100%.
use, purchase, buy, and manipulate scenarios and situations using the monetary system to instigate their control. And the old saying, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts all. So once they get a taste of it, they can never get enough of it. So they're on this like complete sort of train of destruction because what inevitably happens is people will always let it go too far, but it never goes far enough that there isn't a pushback. And it's this sort of to and fro that always happens. It's this kind of polarity that takes place.
Who was it Ronald Reagan that said the scariest phrase you can hear is, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help"? I don't know if you've seen that. Pretty sure it was a Ronald Reagan quote. That's obviously years old, but it's certainly aged well.
Well, I mean, these things is like there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, like the land grab. You've only got to look at cases like Zimbabwe. When you start to, for lack of a better word, fuck around with property rights, you are on a collision course for destroying your government and your country and the economy. Because when you take away people's right of ownership, that is where all hell breaks loose. and it did so in Zimbabwe. You know, so they're in very, very, very tender hooks because there's a dual effect where they're clearly influencing and manipulating the food supply. You know, for you can make your mind up for what reasons that might be for. But in recent times, I think there's a lot of people that are paying attention much more closely than they would have been in the past to, you know, nutrients, GMO seeds, and things of that nature, to go, look, there's something going on, and they're right. There is 100% there's things going on, and you only need to look to America to see the likes of Bobby Kennedy, Trump, Elon Musk, essentially creating a power team where they're going, you know, enough's enough, because they're seeing it firsthand. You know, if you want to look at what happened in America over the last 4 years, things did not go well in that country. Like that that country has been on a decline for 4 years in dramatic fashion. You know, the unsustainable debt growth, their debt to GDP ratios blew out. They're printing trillions of dollars. They're in 2 proxy wars. You've got, you know, scandal after scandal. You've got Joe Biden pardoning his son. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the thing with it was, you know, the money laundering via Ukraine was something that's 100%. Been going on since 2014.
Yeah.
Hunter Biden.
Did you see what Trump posted the other day?
Yeah.
It's so true. And everyone fucking knows it as well.
Well, I mean, this is the thing is like Hunter Biden, I mean, Hunter Biden knows less about oil than the fucking crack dealer that he buys his crack off of.
What was he, chief exec? Chief exec of...
he was on the board. He was on the board
Ukrainian
of Ukrainian energy company, you know, overseeing, you know, he was on I think it was $10 million was the payment that he got for doing that. And it was just...
You're not telling me that he got there through meritocracy. That
it was nepotism at its finest.
100%, yeah. That's under the table dealings that's happened there. But people can't see that, and people won't ask the questions.
Well, I mean, on the surface level, you go, well, a sitting US senator, that son has, you know, in a great position. So this guy is, you know, sitting on a board, and he's a good, upstanding member of the community. Meanwhile, he's running about with fucking laptops, crack, you know, prostitutes, fucking money laundering, and you know, all it took was one laptop to unravel that.
This was this pardon. This was for the laptop that didn't exist. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, how far do you want to go back? Like,
well, it's ridiculous. Being pardoned, there's no crime. So why is there a pardon? How can no one see what's going on there?
And again, it goes back to, you know, the whole, if you start to weaponize, like what is society based on? Society is based on, I don't think anyone that will argue this. Like, do we want law and order? Yes. Do we want to uphold ourselves to a certain moral value? I think most people would agree with that. Is it good that we try and progress humanity? Yes. Should we have some guardrails for that? Yes. So what do we need? We can set these rules, and we need someone to administer them for us. So we all agree that we'll abide by the rules, and we'll give our authority to an organisation to implement what we all, you know, harmoniously agree on as best we can, and that's how a government is formed. But when the people get into government and the government's infiltrated, and then it's quite vocalized, or it's vocalized at sort of very public level by the likes of Klaus Schwab, who says we have penetrated world cabinets around the world, like government level cabinets have been penetrated. His Young Leader program was the program that the WEF created to make sure that they had their guys placed in positions of power, so that they could control what was happening at a cabinet level in all the Western countries.
I don't know if you've seen about the European Council. There was, I don't know how long ago this was, but there's a newly elected president of the European Council, and it's all private. It's not a public vote. It's as far from a democracy as you could get. It's not a public vote. It's behind closed doors. All the 26, 27 nations, whatever, they all vote behind closed doors for this leader. And I mean, the European Council, there's a big level of control and decision making behind that, and it's all under the table. All under the table. No one's even heard of this guy.
Crazy. And this is the thing is that when you start to get to, like, I mean, I remember years ago seeing like the likes of David Icke, and I remember like being very much like, this guy's off his fucking chops. Like, this guy's lost his fucking mind. And progressively, like, all you need to do is give that enough time. And this guy's strike rate is beyond belief, which I find incredible, incredible ability. But what actually is frightening is that, see, some of the things that he said are coming up next are preposterous. But his strike rate is that high. He can't be wrong.
Well, it's the same as Alex Jones as well. If you go back pre 2001 and look at what he was anticipating pre 2001, it's scary. And it's scary how much has come true as well. And it's same with RFK. We're talking about fluoride, chloride, and all these things in the water. And 10 years ago, if you were to talk about that, people would look at you like you've got two heads. And now the new administration that's coming in, it's going to be actively investigated.
Yeah. And they need to do something about it, because it's getting out of hand. But I guess where this led from, where this question came from, was when you have a government, like, most people would overly trust the government. And I guess the point that we're making here is there's many, 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 many examples that you should be critically thinking about the government and not falling into the trap of just doing what they say. Because just because the government said it doesn't mean it's fucking true.
No. But then that's when I think the finger needs to be pointed at media. Is the middleman in the whole process is the media. And the amount of people, if you ask people, what do you credit to your ideology, to your beliefs, they credit the news. And that's like, it's like me crediting an entire career in bodybuilding to the little instructions on the side of gym equipment. So, like, it's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, this is the thing is like, if you, like, I remember during COVID, and it was very, very, I mean, I'm a data guy, so it was very obvious to me that there was a disproportionate, and we know this in hindsight, looking back, that it is the case. But at the time, what you had mainstream media. The story was mainstream media was, there's this, highly contagious, highly deadly virus, and we must all band together and we must do this. And, there was top doctors and scientists that were coming onto TV and they were saying, look, this is the information that we're getting from China is this, we need to buckle down, we need to take care, and so on. And most people were like, we need to do whatever we need to do here. And you would go, look, fair enough. But when the data started to come through and the information started to come to light, and then you start to even do some basic research where you go, look, there's something very, very off here about what I'm being told. And it would be basic things like, you can't, maybe you're not an expert in virology or immunology or viral loads or things of that nature, but you can look at things and you go, well, would social distancing, for instance, make any difference to this? Well, not. No. There's plenty of literature and experts that agree that it doesn't help, but that was being pushed. And then you look at, would a virus know what you were doing before 6 o'clock or after 6 o'clock, whether you were in tier 1, 2 or 3, and you go, this is craziness. So what it was showing us is that this apparatus was telling you all this information about, going, face, space, and whatever it was. Can't remember if it was like these sort of 3-letter kind of acronyms of, essentially don't go near anyone and, avoid everybody. We're social creatures. We naturally want to be in a social environment. But they were treating us like idiots.
100%.
I mean, you look at the information, you go, look, this just doesn't make any sense at all. And it leads us here today where you go, there's this whole group of people. Now, I wouldn't expect everyone in government is, marching to the beat of the same drum. So I imagine that there's, at some level, there's a lot of good and there's a lot of people that, want the best. But on the other side of that, there's a lot of people that have, agendas that are not in the best interest for the people. But it comes under this whole umbrella of the government. And people are kind of like, oh, well, because the government said so. And they're just brainwashed. And as you say quite rightly, they're brainwashed through media. And when you're seeing these things in COVID, you would be speaking to people and you'd be asking them, things like, so why do you think, have you looked into research, or have you checked this out? Have you looked at what effectiveness, essentially a sanitary towel with 2 fucking straps around your ears would provide you in terms of, protection? And they're like, no. And they're fucking dripping with like, sanitary fucking what's that stuff, the alcohol.
I know what you mean. Yeah, the swabs. It's ridiculous. It's when I had the gym, right, we had to stay shut, and it was really painful for us, and it was really difficult because at that same point in time I couldn't take members into the gym, but they could go to the pub, they could go and get steaming drunk, and they could stand in someone's face and have a. You can't control drunk people en masse in Weatherspoons. 200-300 drunk people. Look, you're going to be face to face having conversations. You're going to be spitting all over someone's face, but they couldn't come to the gym, and that's where I completely lost my mind over the whole thing. Is when it started actually costing me money, and it cost me a lot more than just money. But when it started costing me money, that's when I started taking it personally. But that's when you really seen how ridiculous this is, and then the whole incentive for people and go buy fucking fast food and drive-throughs and all this.
Would you remember? I don't know if you remember it. Like, did you see they had? I must have had the same thought as you, because I remember thinking, this is fucking bonkers.
Huh?
This is wild, because I was out cycling. I took up cycling, so couldn't get in the gym, and the gyms were closed. You were trying to, can we get dumbbells from somewhere? Can we get a bar? You were trying to sort of piece together something so you could get training. Yeah. And I remember them saying, we need to do this for another 3 weeks to flatten the curve, but what we'll do is we're going to give you, if you get vaccinated, we're going to give you a Just Eat voucher for 50 quid. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, so you can go to the boozer, they're giving you takeaway fucking vouchers so that you can take this fucking whatever it is, experimental gene fucking weapon or whatever they want to call it, because it certainly wasn't a traditional vaccine. You can take this thing and you want to go and get fast food after it, but look, we need to keep everybody out of the gym.
But then this was at the point where it all transpired that being vaccinated didn't actually prevent you from transmitting it to someone else. So that's when I was like, well, what does it matter? What does it matter if someone who's unvaccinated comes in? It doesn't decrease their chance of transmitting it to someone else. But so many people, and still to this day, so many people stand by that. That's the case.
Have you seen well, I mean, it's like people need to play the busted flush straw. I mean, they've
done a bit virtue signal, yeah.
Traditional kind of property guys would pay, like, just use an example, say we're renting a property for £1,000 a month, the mortgage was 500 a month, you'd be making 500 a month profit. So that's what you would be, that would be your earnings, that's what you'd live off. So what they said was, in their fucking wisdom was, you don't need to pay your mortgage. You can contact your bank, you don't need to pay your mortgage, and the tenant doesn't need to pay the rent. I'm like, yeah, well, how the fuck how do you live then? Because and there was literally that crack that everybody fell into. So, like, if you were employed, you got help. If you had a business, you got help. If you had an investor, it was like, good luck, Jack. You just go and do your thing.
Nah, we had an absolute nightmare getting anything, and they did nothing but harass us. I mean, we got a phone call one day, and it was just this guy, and fuck knows what his job was, but he was like, oh, there's been a case traced back to your gym. And
a case?
We were like, okay, like someone's got COVID and we've traced it back to them getting it from your gym. So I was like, how have you traced that back? What's your mechanisms for accurately saying they got it here? And then if they did get it here, what's the issue? Like, what does it matter? Anyway, we had to do this questionnaire, and this went on for about an hour and a half. And he was asking us about the layout of the building. He was asking us about the bathrooms, and he was like, your cubicles. He says, what's the clearance below top and the bottom of your cubicles? I was like, the bathrooms are in separate rooms. They're not cubicles. Yeah, so what's the gap between the ground and the wall? There is no fucking gap. It's a separate room. Okay, and he just kept asking the same question. I'm like, am I like, this guy's trying to scrutinize my business and make out he's some big fucking medical hotshot, and he can trace back this disease to my gym, but he can't decipher what a fucking cubicle versus a separate room is. Honestly, mate, it was the most painful, mind-numbing conversation, and it happened multiple times, and I don't know what they achieved from it. It was just a waste of time.
Well, I've got a few friends that various businesses over the years. The business world's actually quite a small world, as you'll know. Like, so you get to know people and see some of the waste with the fucking COVID. Like there's a warehouse full of PPE that's never been opened. That's getting charged 25 quid a pallet. So you imagine a warehouse full of them, and it's never been used. And they've just went and says, look, just fucking, get rid of it, because it's more cost effective to just bin it than it is to sell it or do anything with it.
Yeah,
that's what they're doing, and I can't imagine how much was paid for it initially, because they've been at some exorbitant premium. Yeah. Then the storage, all the storage costs for the last 4 years, and then for it to be disposed of. Wild wastage. So see where, like, how long did you let's go back to where you started. So
Yeah.
I found out about you once Big Mikey started wearing all the heavy duty gear. See
Aye.
Ollie
Hmm.
Cook, that is behind the heavy duty gym wear.
Yeah.
I got chatting to him after seeing Big Mikey wearing the stuff. I was like, that's pretty cool. He's been on the podcast quite a few times, and one thing led to another, and I'd seen you in the same stuff, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. Cool. And I liked your name, the Vanilla Gorilla. That's a cracker. Who came up with that?
That was Ollie. That's because of my cracking tan. That's why. That's my Inverness tan.
For the listeners out there, you are exceptionally white, almost on bordering on transparent.
Extremely. This yellow light in here is doing me some good favors. Like, but normally I'm pale as fuck. Like,
Like I seen that. I think I'd seen pictures. My son George is just turned 12, and he's like
mhm.
got the bodybuilding bug. Like he must
Good.
fucking flex 800 times a day before he's like goes to
Good
school.
man. Good man.
Oh, he is. And there's like after my fucking basement is now essentially a gym. We've got squat rack, bench, dumbbells, and
Brilliant.
he's got no patience. There's about 0.8 of a second between something coming into George's mind and Dad, we need we need this, uh, and we need to get it. Like, how soon can I get it, and when can it
Mhm.
arrive? But we'll fan this fire because, but see the discipline, dedication,
100%.
focus, attention to
And
detail.
yeah, and it's all interchangeable skill as well. Do you know what I mean? That mindset, that mentality, you carry that over to anything.
So when did you start getting into bodybuilding?
So I started, oh God, I'd been like 15, 16. So I used
All
to,
right.
I was probably very similar to your boy. So like 11, 12, I started kind of getting into the gym, going to the gym whilst I was in school. So there was actual gym in the school. So I used to go like on
Did
my
you know what
lunch
you're doing, or were you
breaks,
just blasting the shit out your biceps and fucking
just
even?
literally just arms, mate. Like I was like a fucking ice lolly for about 5 years. But yeah, I used to go on my lunch break, used to go after school. And then when I turned 16, I was finally able to join like the gym.
Yep.
Um, Signed up there, and I was kind of really into bodybuilding at this point, and I followed the kind of UK bodybuilding scene. And there was a Scottish bodybuilder, a guy called Graham Park, and he was like the kind of number one in Scotland of all time, sort of thing, in my eyes, anyway. Um, he was an ABBA Mr. Universe, achieved loads throughout his career in bodybuilding, and it just so happened that he had actually moved up to where I live, which is pure chance. And one day I was in the gym, and just in like a council gym, a leisure centre gym, and I was
Yep.
training, doing my bicep work, and seen this guy, and I was like, "That's fucking Graham Park." I was like, "I recognise him," and I like built up the courage to go and speak to him. Got speaking to him, and told me he was moving up here, and he asked me to train with him. So it became a sort of a regular thing. Um, and then from getting in with Graham, the progress I made in a year surpassed what I'd done since I started in that kind of 5 year period. But
What age were
Graham,
you?
I'd have been 17 when I met Graham,
Wow.
and then started spending some time with him, and he mentioned the thought of competing, and I was like, nah, not for me. At that point, I was quite introverted, and the thought of standing on a stage like in front of people was just it wasn't even on the table. Um, but
What
I
did that
started
feel like to you? Was it terrifying?
initially, yeah, but then it turns into something really good. But so I mean, like at that point, it was just not a possibility. But the more time and effort I started investing into bodybuilding, the more it made sense to kind of reap some reward from it or make it worth something. And when you're putting in that level of work and effort, it's it's got to be for something as well. When you don't have that kind of end goal, it's quite a difficult thing to do. Um, so Graham helped me kind of prep for my first show, and it just kind of all spiraled from there, really. Um, so you could say I was lucky to fall under his mentorship.
Yep.
I think if that didn't happen, this wouldn't have happened. So yeah, very grateful for Graham and the time that he gave me.
What did How did you do in your first show?
So I got fourth out of 12, which I was really happy with at the time. But then,
Yep.
subconsciously, when you go into a competition, no one goes into a competition, especially there's a separate kind of entity to bodybuilding because you're getting judged on. It's quite personal. It's how you look. It's your, I mean, it's what you dedicate all your time, effort, and money to. Um, and you want first. everyone wants a first. No one's really happy with anything but a first. But I was happy to take fourth out of 12. It gave me the confidence to say, well, I'm not the worst. Like I've got the potential to go somewhere. And from there, I think I took 2 years off, and then I started winning shows as a junior. And then I think I won 2 or 3 shows in a row after that, before moving into the adult classes.
So what would you have been competing as a teen? Was that your first event as a teen?
I was 19 when I first competed. Yeah,
Right.
19 for my first show. So,
And
and
was
then
it a
that's
was it a teen competition, or was it like the open? Like,
so
what would it,
it was a junior class I did. Yeah,
right.
so it was the juniors, but the junior class at that time went up to 24. So I was 19, competing against guys 5 years older than me
Yeah.
and winning. So it was still an accomplishment.
What did you see when you started out? Like, did you have did you know straight away that you were going to make this like a serious, have a serious go at it, or were you like, I'll give it a shot and see how I
No,
find it?
I was pretty serious about it because it's all I did. Like, I mean, when I first started out, I was like 3 hours a day, 7 days a week, which I wouldn't advocate to anyone. But at the time, I thought that was the best thing to do in the
3 hours
gym.
a day.
It was a part-time job, 21 hours. They used to make jokes about me living in the cupboard, but you were just there all the time. But then it's outside the gym as well. It's not like it's not just the work you do in the gym. It's all the effort that goes into outside the gym that people don't see.
Like,
All the
for people that just think it's a case of, you go and, get on a program, get on a regime, lift a couple of weights. Like, they don't really know what goes into this, do
no,
they?
no,
They don't
no.
have a clue, because it's like, what sort of things like my favorite one. My favorite one is when someone comes to you and they've been in for 2 gym sessions, and they'll say something like, "Yeah, mate, I don't want to train like you because I don't want to get too big."
Shut.
Or what can I do to get my legs bigger? And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, like, how about fucking training properly? Like,
Yeah,
eat. What's your nutrition like? What's your sleep like? How dedicated you are? How consistent are you?
yeah.
There's so much that people don't see.
The whole, the whole, that whole phrase, "Don't want to get as big as you." People say it like it happens overnight. It's like you're looking at like a fucking 10-year span,
Yeah.
to get to that point. But people genuinely think that this can happen in a year, and it's not. You could take it as a bit of an insult, but I guess
Oh,
people are
it's
just
naive. It's just
it's
naivety. I
just
mean,
people are just naive to the level of effort that it takes. The amount of friends I've got who I've asked who go to the gym, but they don't necessarily go to the extent of which I would do. If I'll get a session with you one day, we'll jump in, and they jump in and they never come back, or you get halfway through and they literally leave. I've had people just leave, and just not say they're leaving and just not come back. I've had all sorts, but no one ever comes back.
yeah.
So people don't realize the extent of which we take things to until they actually immerse themselves in the same position.
It's a weird setup, isn't it? I mean, my missus has just started training, so she, for like, just lucky that could get away with not going to the gym, staying in shape.
Mm-hmm.
But we started Dale, who you met earlier, started the lifting club. He's got his own gym, and it was like a parents and kids lifting club. So it started off as a lifting club, and then the kids came along, and then they
Mm-hmm.
had to be split. The parents, so it's like the kids and the adults will train together, and they do like a wee workout.
That's good.
Mrs. was like quite enjoying this.
Yeah.
So she was, she's like, what do you, and it was that tentative kind of 38 years of not going to the gym, and I'm not a gym person, and a gym isn't for me, and it's intimidating, and everybody's in there will be looking at you because you don't know what you're doing, and all this, like all the usual kind of
Yeah.
stigma. And I said to her, I was like, what do you like? Do you know the thing that people have in common that go to the gym? They all want to improve. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
regardless of whether you've never been, or regardless of whether you've been there for 20 years getting after it,
Mm-hmm.
you're all there to get better.
The thing is, yeah, the fact that you're there, people don't realize is a huge accomplishment. The fact you're even in the place, but the whole like mentality of so and so is looking at me, like everyone has the exact same thought in their head. That person's looking at me, but they're looking at you thinking you're looking at them, and it's
Yeah.
no one cares. No one cares. Just go and switch off.
Everybody's in there
Yeah,
doing their own thing.
yeah.
Like, I remember, I said to the missus, So there was the lassie in there, you know, like the current gym wear is like the high waisted leggings and the crop tops
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
right.
Like, God bless this lassie. She was in there, and let's just say she'd put a fucking effort into her before pictures, because
Right.
she came in, and I mean, in terms of reasons or excuses as to why she might feel that she probably didn't want to be in the gym. That
Uh-huh.
and how I described it would be that, do you know when you try and get two pillows into one pillowcase?
Yeah.
Right, that was a
Yeah.
look. And I was like,
Jesus
fair.
Christ.
And I looked at her and I was like, you know what? Kudos to you. Right,
Yeah, fucking right.
you're not in the best of shape, right? And you've clearly made somewhere at some point along the road, you've
Mm-hmm.
made a few decisions that weren't the right ones, and you've
Mm-hmm.
continued that for a really decent amount of time. That you've got a superb before picture. But
Mm-hmm.
do you know what? You're in here,
100%.
and I was like, hat off to you, man.
Yeah.
I was like, hat off to you, because you've overcome all this stuff. The
Mhm.
heaviest weight in the whole gym is the front
Yeah.
door.
The most impressive people to see in the gym are not the seasoned bodybuilders. It's not the power lifters ripping 300 plus kilo off the ground. It's the people who it's taking them a huge ordeal to just get through the front door. You know,
Yeah,
people in the gym in wheelchairs, people in the gym on crutches, like people, you know, like people who, if most people were in the same position as them, wouldn't leave their house. That's
yeah.
what's impressive. You know what I mean? And it's I've sort of been in that situation recently, and I've had a slight insight into how that is for people in that, and it's fucking difficult. And it's like I've got huge respect anyway, but even more so now.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm big into the encouragement, you know, especially when you see somebody who's, you know, like, you know, how sensitive people can be to,
Hmm.
and I mean sensitive in the sense that you give them the tiniest bit of encouragement and it goes miles. It's like
Yeah,
magic dust. Where
yeah.
you're like, hey, look, fair play to you. You know, it was good to see you back in the gym.
Hmm.
Looks like you're getting starting to get some results. You can see the change in you, and you can
Yeah,
see their physiology change. They stand a wee
100%.
bit taller, you know, and it's that boost where they're being recognised. They're in this place that they thought was dark and dingy and fucking superficial, and everyone
Hmm.
was like going to be critical of what they're doing. And they've came along, they're getting encouragement. They're getting like, hey, you're doing well. It's good to see you,
Hmm.
and it's
Everyone
that
everyone needs it.
recognition.
Everyone needs it. Even yeah, like even that's one. Go back to Graham. Actually, that's one thing I used to like a lot about Graham was with in terms of kind of encouragement and praise. It wasn't something that came often, but when you did get it, it carried so much weight, and the
Yeah,
effect that it had, it carried you through for months. Um, Anything he did say was always constructive, and I think that's important as well. You know, if you're giving feedback to someone, just make sure it's constructive. You know, it's going up to someone saying, "Oh, you're fucking skinny." You know, it's, do you know what I mean? It's not going to do anyone any good. So I think the delivery of criticism is important too, because people need to hear criticism as well as encouragement. That's
yeah.
what carried me. That's what carried me through, and that's what made me year on year get better and better. Um, was the criticism as well, but carefully constructed criticism.
What would be like? What would be a good? Tell me an example of good constructive criticism.
So, for example, well, we would get feedback. So every show you do, you get a list of feedback, right? And but the feedback is usually extremely vague. So just like it'll just say good qualities, and it might be like good upper chest, whatever. Then feedback like to work on more quads, something like that. So I would just take that. I wouldn't look much into it, and I would just give it to Graham. Like, right, Graham, what do they want here? And he would break it down into a kind of desired result, and he would try and use like imagery work. So like, picture you with this, like a better lower back, complete the look. You try and get me to look at myself from like a almost like a third person perspective.
Was he
Just
getting you to visualize?
yeah, it was like visualization work, imagery work, like internal imagery, external imagery. Um,
Going to
People
explain
probably
that to me.
yeah. So for example, a time where I would use internal imagery is so early this year, I got asked to guest pose at a show for the first time in my life. So a guest posing, for those that don't know, a bodybuilding show is usually on at half time, and they'll usually take someone in off a certain standard to be like a kind of like a freak factor awe moment. Usually just for entertainment value. You're not getting judged. But out of all the competitions I've done, the the guest spot carried the most pressure for me because one, you've got to be somewhat entertaining. I'm quite vanilla. It's in my fucking nickname. Two,
What you mean, vanilla as a personality, not just as a tan?
well, a bit of both, yeah. But so quite vanilla in that sense. But you've got to be of a certain standard as well. So I felt there was quite a lot of pressure on me, and I really struggled to practice posing and all these things. So what I would do is I would sit and do internal imagery work, whereas I would try and imagine myself doing it on the stage, so that through repetition it became quite a familiar feeling, and that when the actual time came, it wasn't as out there of a moment.
So
So
just if I was imagining what you were doing, if I think of what you're doing, are you watching yourself from the audience looking at you up in the stage?
So if I was externally visualizing that, I would have been doing that. But the internal visualization was me in my own head imagining doing it myself. So it's just
Right. So
repetitions.
I would say that you were internally visualizing two perspectives, one perspective for the crowd and one
Yeah.
perspective as you doing it, but
Yeah.
they're internal,
Hmm.
as in you're internally creating a vision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right,
And
that's where I was getting confused because I'm like, how do you externally visualize? Like, how would you do that? But I get it
internally
now.
visualizing from an external perspective is probably the way of putting it.
Yeah, yeah.
But and just through that kind of repetitive thought process, it made the idea of me doing that guest spot more realistic. It made it,
What do you think was going on there for in your mind?
I don't really know. I just think it was just pressure. It was just pressure to be a spectacle, something slightly above the standard of the show.
Like
Um,
you want to do something cool,
yeah, you want to do something cool,
right?
yeah,
I
and
want
it's
like so if you I want you to go back there in your mind and
hmm
remember the pressure,
hmm
right? You got it.
hmm
The pressure will have a picture associated to it. What's the picture?
people laughing. Uh,
Like I do mind work all the time, so I knew that it was in there.
yeah,
What are they
people
doing?
laughing.
Tell
Yeah.
me about it. So the
Taking the
pressure's
piss,
there. What's the picture?
taking the piss, or saying he's shit, or saying this is shit. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, good. So what you're doing there is you're essentially doing the visualization work where you're creating new pathways in your mind
Yeah.
to feel good about what you're about to do that dampens this picture
Mm-hmm.
that you're what you're doing is you're pushing the picture that you've got in your mind. So you have a feeling that a picture's attached to, and that picture is negative.
Yeah.
People taking a piss, and it makes you feel anxious because you're like, what if I look shit? It creates doubt,
Mm-hmm.
fear, uncertainty. They're saying I look shit. They're fucking
Mm-hmm.
giving me the fingers. Why is this guy here?
Yeah.
He's not that good. He's really white.
I don't know if that was in the thought process, but maybe it is now.
Yeah,
But no,
it
I
will
think
be now.
a good way of putting it is like, so with, like, say someone in an office job, you're going
Yeah.
in to pitch, like in a meeting or something, right? If you go into that meeting and you're confident with what you're talking about, you know your topic, you feel good about yourself, you've done it so many times that you're comfortable, you're not going to come across as an idiot. You're going to have a far different outcome versus if you go into a meeting and you're like, shit, well, I'm maybe not too confident in what I'm saying, or what if I come across as stupid, or you're going to have a shit outcome. So it's
Yeah.
just, mentally repeating a positive outcome to ensure that I actually get a good outcome.
A small aside, if you allow me,
Mm-hmm.
this cracks me up. Phil was a good friend of mine that was on my podcast on episode 2 and 4, and he's got I never knew this, but he was like he was in the decision making process to amputate both his legs when at the age of 7.
Shit.
So he was like, yeah, cut them off and give me prosthetic limbs. So he didn't tell
Yeah.
me until like the third or fourth time that I'd met him,
Mm-hmm.
and he was pissed, like proper pit. And I'm like, why is he fucking like why is he scooping these drinks down like that's going out of fashion? I was like, he's like drinking like a man with no like hollow legs.
Uh-huh.
Little was I to know what he was about to tell me.
Jesus.
So he told me the story, and it was a cracking story where he was just a young boy wanting to play with his pals, and this disease was just hampering it, and it was like a case of, well, we can amputate the legs, we can
Mm-hmm.
give you prosthetic limbs, you can go and play with your pals. And it was like, deal, done, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
He was very much like very content with that decision that he made, and it was like fair play. So he's got an amazing CV. He's in cyber security, so there's a lot of sort of classified work that he does that he can't sort of disclose.
Mm-hmm.
But get a few pints in him, and he'll tell you some really interesting stuff. And one of the things that he tells me about was like just like on the topic of what you're talking about, the fear and the imposter syndrome. So he tells this story, and it makes me it's a great story about like what happens when you've got this like mental block or this picture in your mind that's driving you crazy. So he was working for a bank doing the security in Canary Wharf, and the bank had called the who's who into the boardroom meeting in, you know, Canary Wharf. You know, you can imagine it, glass skyscrapers, London, you know, the who's who, the hot shots, and he's thinking, Jack, he's like, what the fuck am I doing here? You know, imposter syndrome swallowing him up. And he's telling this story. He's like, Gio, he's like, it's climbing up the back of my neck, how uptight I'm getting. And he says, like, not a clue. He's like, I'm looking at the roster of people that's on here, and he's just going, what the fuck are they wanting me here for? Because of like all these like hot shots. So he says he was in the meeting, and Phil, he's a bald guy. He's like, so he says, I didn't even want to take off my jacket because I was sweating that much in this meeting at the start of the meeting. He didn't want to take the jacket off. He says, my shirt would have been fucking see-through. That's how much this is getting to me. So you can imagine how anxious he is. He says, and it took me about 5 minutes, Gio. Within 5 minutes, I realised something. He says, you know what I realised? Nobody had a fucking clue what they were talking about. And he says, I've got myself worked up that much that he's like, I'm trying to stop the sweat, the skin, the film of water in my hair, or my head, should I say, from perspiring. It's fucking tapping it. It's just, he's like, I've worked myself into an oblivion here.
Yeah.
He says, and I realise that I'm there because no one has got a fucking clue what they're talking about, and I'm the guy. He says, but that was the power of like getting yourself into that sort of state. And just look at what you were able to do. You're going to go up on stage by your own admission. You were like, hey, look, I'm a bit of an introvert, you know, vanilla. And your instinct was to create this, oh, they're going to fucking, why they want me. This is a lot of pressure. You're supposed to be entertaining. You're not fucking entertaining. This is the internal chatter. Why do they want you? Do they even know you? Literally, like, if they made a mistake.
It's another guy. No, it's true. It's true. It's imposter syndrome. It's
But the cool thing is that you were aware enough to go, like, I can change my mental image or feeling around this. I can change how this is by doing the mental work. That's really cool.
It's
how did you know how to do that?
So I was actually working with a sports psychologist at the time. A chap who worked quite closely with guys in MMA. And when I did start initially speaking to him, he said to me that I'm not too familiar with bodybuilding. You know, I work very closely with fighters, and I said, you know, that's the mentality that I actually want. And there was a lot of carryovers from what he would typically deal with, but a lot of the imagery work, that's what it stemmed from. So I kind of recognized that there was that negative thought process. I recognized that it's probably going to not stand me in a good stead for doing this. So what can I do about it? In my own capacity, there wasn't very much because I'm not a professional in that sense. So I seeked out some help, and I learned a lot from it. It was very good.
And did you reach out for that help because of the way you felt, or was it like a chance encounter? Like how did you cross paths? Because that's a fucking clever move. If you've went like, look, I'm going to go and level up.
So I've got a friend who he competes. He's a fighter. He competes, and I actually got speaking to him. So we speak quite closely. There's carryovers from his sport to my sport, and we kind of bounce ideas off each other, but kind of reinforce each other's kind of mentality, and you know, it's quite good thing that we have. And I was speaking to him, and I explained the issue to him. It's not as much of an issue, but it's something I think I need to address if I want to get a good outcome. And he told me that he was working with this guy and passed me on his details, sent him a message, we had a quick chat on the phone, explained what it was. He told me what he did. And I said, look, the worst thing that can happen is I try it and it doesn't work, but at least I can say I tried it. So we set up a call, and even from the first call, I got so much. So my ability to break down negative thought process now is quite good. I can identify when they're there, and I can act on them really quick. And the risk of them then carrying over and negatively impacting my training and recovery, stuff like that, it's really good. And that's only, I think I had 10, 11 sessions over the course of 4 or 5 months. I got so much from it. So much from it.
What did you, like, what was the shift for you? What was your big points that you got from it? What did you take out of the 11 sessions that you done? Because there must have been something that something you weren't aware of, or something that you didn't quite understand before, and then you
Yeah.
had a massive shift in understanding
Hmm.
about how your mind works, and then
Yeah.
how to make that work for you rather than against you.
I think identifying when something wrong is, for me, is easy. I can do that. It's action in it, and a lot of the time it's quite simple. It's just putting something into perspective. So I had this stupid injury early this year, mate. So I've had quite a few injuries this year. One major injury which I'm still recovering from, and then I had a small injury which actually was really fucking annoying. So this pinky, I tore the tendon at the tip of my pinky, and I had, it's called mallet finger, and my tip of my pinky was stuck. It's like a right angle. And I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. I was on prep. I had a show coming up in like 10 weeks. And I was like, seriously? But I was like, it's only my pinky. It's fine. But see this, try to grip anything. It affected my training so much. And I started to get really, really frustrated on a daily basis.
Mm.
Even like cooking my meals, try to eat my meals. It was like, I try to type on a keyboard. It was like affected my life so much, this stupid little pinky injury. And I think, like, see my leg, so it's a big injury, and I can't do fuck all, right? But I can accept it because it's my leg. It's a big injury. You just kind of accept it for what it is. But your pinky, you're like, seriously? Um, so I had a session, and this sounds a bit dramatic, but the way he got me to put it in perspective is like, it's happened. There's nothing you can do about it. What's the point in self torture? And he quoted a conversation he'd had with, someone who essentially had sent a sibling on their way to the shop to get something, and the sibling had been in a fatal car accident, and this person destroyed themselves over sending them to the shop like it was their fault. And he says he didn't send them to the shop thinking that was going to happen. They weren't to know it's not their fault. But this guy, he destroyed himself for years over it. So it's like the whole kind of putting things into perspective a bit. It's like that's a really dramatic comparison, but that scaled it down for me. Um,
So
but
what you were doing for everybody that, to summarise what you've described there, you had this injury that was a small thing that you were blown out of proportion, and
yeah,
you didn't know you
literally,
were blown out of proportion,
yeah,
and it was starting
yeah,
to spill over into everything, where
hmm
it was now becoming a big problem from a small issue.
yeah,
And what your guy's done there is what he's done is he's given you a sense of perspective by
hmm
taking something extreme
hmm
and then overlaying that on what you're doing, and you're going,
yeah.
ah,
Oh, yeah.
oh,
But it's like how many conversations do you have with people where you give them advice that you wouldn't give to yourself because you wouldn't recognize being able to give it to yourself, or you wouldn't
mm.
palate it yourself? It's like
But
it's one of
it's
those
the whole
scenarios.
thing. It's that situation where there's a big difference between knowing what to do and
Hmm
doing what you know,
hmm
and a lot of people can be guilty of that.
hmm
They'll take action that they wouldn't, they wouldn't do that to their friend or a family or a loved one or a dog. But they'll do it to themselves.
Yeah.
And it's about being. It's what you said there. It was awareness. They're not aware
hmm
really what they're doing.
100%. But
So
no, it's
you had how many injuries you had this year?
physical injuries. I've had three, but I've had illness after illness as well. I had pneumonia during the summer, which wasn't pleasant. But the big injury I'm dealing with right now is
Oh,
the
so they
the,
call it
the
pneumonia
knee.
now. There was a while there they didn't call anything. They didn't call pneumonia pneumonia.
No, I was just told it was pneumonia in one of my lungs. COVID. I know.
Yeah, the
But
Rona.
aye. But no, it's
Bit by a
I
shark. It was the Rona.
bit fuck it, aye, car crash, Rona. Fucking stub your toe, Rona. But no,
It's
it's
good to see that it's back in vogue. That we're calling things what they are now.
no, it's been a intense year this year, but I think this the knee has been the biggest one.
So
It's
what
the
happened? Tell like when I heard about this, I had Adam on the podcast and we're talking about his roller coaster year of well,
mhm.
not even a year. It was 2.5 months
Aye.
of competition. He'd been in. I'd met Adam for the first time in a podcast,
Yep.
and he's a big, huge, creepy, sinister-looking guy, like sinister, and he just gives off this fucking dark energy.
Aye.
And it's
He's a
funny
good
because
good guy.
he's actually a good guy,
He's a good
but
guy.
he's
Yeah.
just got this sort of like quite fucking cold,
hmm
angry, suppressed fucking
Aye.
energy. And when he came in and I was asking about how he was doing this, like, have you got anybody else that like would be good as a guest? And he says, he's like, what kind of guest he's looking for? I'm like, anyone that's got like a good kind of mindset angle, and it doesn't need
Mm.
to be like they're smashing it out the park. It can be like they've something's went wrong, and
Mm-hmm.
they've got a good mentality, or they've dug themselves out of it. He's like, I know just the guy, and then he
Mm.
explained what had happened. But for the listeners out there, tell us what happened. Tell us how you ended up in hospital.
Yeah, so I I won't I won't allude into the whole story because we'll be here for ages. But essentially, I fell down some stairs, and it's not even like a big flight of stairs. It was literally 4 or 5 steps. So fell down some stairs, went to stand up, couldn't stand up. Tried to stand up again, fell back down. Extreme pain, arguably the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. Um, so where I was in like a remote location at the time. It was later on in the day, no one about, so I had to essentially sniper crawl up these stairs to my car. Pulled myself into the car, and it was very similar to the. I don't know if you've seen the moment in The Wolf of Wall Street where he's climbing into the Lambo. Very similar,
Yeah.
very similar to that. Got into the car, drove myself to A&E, got X-rayed in A&E, got transferred by ambulance to hospital, and I was told that I had ruptured the patellar tendon in my left leg. So the patellar tendon essentially holds your kneecap in place. It's the tendon, if you smack below your knee jumps. So it snapped clean off, and my kneecap shot about 4 inches up into my quad. Um, so yeah, so when I got to hospital, I was my left leg was fucked. It was honestly in a horrendous state, and it was so swollen as well. Initially, when it happened, I could see my kneecap up in my leg, but the swelling came
Oh
on
man.
so
So how
came
high
on.
did it go up? Was it up near your teardrop?
It was 3.9 inches up into my quad, off to the
From
side.
like, so you're it went to the side.
It went up and to the outer edge. Yeah. So and
Oh man.
the worst part is when it happened, right? I was like, I know what this is. I've seen this on TV. I've dislocated my knee. I know how to fix this. And I fucking grabbed my knee, locked it straight, and pushed it, and it didn't move. And the pain.
Oh
Um,
man.
so that was a stupid thing. But anyway, so I was in hospital, and yeah, I got told it's going to require surgery. So I got surgery to reattach the tendon. The surgery I think went on for just over 4 hours. They reconstructed the inside of my knee. There was other trauma that they didn't realize, when they went in there. The surgeon explained to me, he said your tendon just looked like a mop head, just hanging off. So to resuture that back on. So what they do is they put two longitudinal drill holes through your kneecap, and they run the sutures through that, and it pulls everything back into place. But what they had to put in my leg as well was a wire. They call it a McLaughlin wire. And what it is that the way they explained it to me is that one provides protection for if you fall. It takes the strain rather than the tendon, and two, it provides a compression force on the tendon to help it recover. But this wire restricted me from bending my knee beyond 80 degrees, which 80 degrees sounds like a lot. It's nothing. It's not enough to go up a step. It's not enough. It's not enough to do anything. It's enough to just remotely be comfortable. So I just had surgery last week to remove that. But that's been
So what
14, 15
were you
weeks.
in crutches?
So I went from being able to walk perfectly fine to not being able to walk at all. So I was in a wheelchair for 5 weeks. Then I went from the wheelchair to crutches. I went from 2 crutches to 1 crutch, and then I went from 1 crutch to no crutch. But I was told by this point I wouldn't be walking. I've kind of surpassed the timeline that was given to me, but there's a bit of a story behind that in terms of the work that I've done. Um, but the prognosis that they gave me wasn't great. So I was lying in the hospital bed, and they told me you're going to be a year at least before you're normal. Your leg, he's like, all this muscle. He says you'll lose all that. It was quite brutal how they tell you, but that's how they've got to tell you. But um, every time they were telling me these timelines in my head, I was like, I'm going to beat that. I'm going to beat that. I'm not going to let it be a year. I'm not going to let it be this long. And it got to week 6, and I was sick of using a wheelchair to leave the house. I was sick of having to use crutches to get about the house, and I woke up late at night, and I actually had to sleep on a mattress. I had to take my mattress down and put it on the living room floor to sleep downstairs because I couldn't go up the stairs. And I woke up one night to go to the downstairs bathroom, and I was like, "What the fuck is this? This is like I can't do anything." And I got quite not upset with myself, but it was quite an intense feeling of it was almost like shame. And I just took my crutches and I flung them the full length of the corridor. They landed at the bathroom door, and I was standing at this point, so I was forced to walk to the toilet door. So I did that, and then from there I just started doing
What
little
was going on in
bits.
your mind at that point?
Um, Quite a lot of things, to be honest. Bodybuilding is usually what people think I would have been spending most of my time thinking about, but I spent the least amount of time thinking about bodybuilding. Bodybuilding didn't even cross my mind through this recovery. All I wanted to do was I just wanted to walk a bit. I wanted to be able to be in the house without having to have someone babysit me, without having to have someone make my food. I wanted to be able to just take my dog a walk. I just wanted to do just the basic stuff, and it really made me appreciate the basic day-to-day stuff that we do that you take for granted. Um,
So, how
uh,
would you describe what you were feeling?
it's really hard. It's a cocktail. It's a
Yeah,
cocktail
well,
thing.
it sounds like it. I mean, I'm going to take a guess, and maybe I can start you off, and you can fill in the rest. But
Hmm.
I think that you're going to feel shame. You're going to feel
Yeah,
worthless. You're going to feel
yeah,
regret. You're going to feel frustration. Like these are the ones that I'm putting myself there, and I'm going, what's Jack feeling at this
yeah.
point? And it's enough. Like it's like things are bubbling up,
Hmm.
and it's coming to a crescendo, and you it seems like you've got to enough. But what else was going on?
The
Helplessness as well. Helplessness comes to mind.
helplessness is the one, right? So I'll give you a scenario, okay? So we went to visit my folks one night. It's when my legs started to get sort of better. So the only way I could travel in the car was to sit across the back seats with my legs straight on the seat. That's the only way I could sit in the car. And we came back from my folks and we stopped to get food. And my girlfriend went to run in to get food. And I was sitting in the car, and this drunk came past my car, tried to get into my car, like shaking on the handle, started falling all over the bonnet of my car, and I'm sitting in the back seat, and I'm like, I can't do anything here. Like if my girlfriend was here and he got in the car, it's like I couldn't do anything. I'm totally useless, and that was a horrible feeling. Like
You felt
my
vulnerable.
probably for the first time in my life, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I mean, my folks. So my dad suffers from Parkinson's. My mum, she's got AS, which is a joint disease essentially. It's a bad form of arthritis. And my girlfriend, she's just started a business. I've got a dog. I've got friends. I've got business commitments, and I had to rely on all of these people who typically rely on me to help them just to get through each day. You know, like people would have to take rotations to look after me for 6 weeks, like just sit with me. And most of the time, you're out your face on pain medication as well. The pain after the first surgery is the worst thing I've ever felt. I've got an extremely good pain threshold, and this was like so intense. And the medication that you have to take, it just numbs your head, which is why I think when I look back, the first 6 to 8 weeks were arguably the easiest because you're not present. You're morphine, tramadol, it's all opioids. You're not even
Yeah.
you're not there. Um, but the difficult part came. Physio was good for me, right? And a lot of people would think if you go from being able to walk to being able to do, everything, squat 200 plus kilos, like to not being able to walk, it's a really intense, horrible feeling. Going into physio and not being able to just extend your leg must be extremely challenging mentally. It wasn't actually that bad because I treated physio like I would anything in the gym. Every week I would go in and I would try and do more than the week before, and every week I did. So every week you're accomplishing something and you're progressing, and you see that progression, and it obviously releases endorphins, and you feel good and you feel
Mhm.
positive. But then
And
what?
that's a great perspective to have, because
Mhm.
what like a lot of people would struggle with, and what you're describing there is that you gave yourself a target. You knew, like, you were
Yeah.
aiming to a positive outcome. Like
Hmm.
you had accepted, okay, I'm in the shit,
Hmm.
and if I get out the shit, what I do is I get progress.
Hmm.
And you, like,
100%.
the opposite of what people would go, they would be focusing on, why has this happened to me? Why do I feel vulnerable? Why do I feel helpless? You went there and you had a target in mind, and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm climbing out the hole.
100%. And it's
That's powerful.
the it got difficult with the physio. So when you have to gradually stretch off a tendon, so when you rupture a tendon, they suture it back together, but they suture it tight. So it's seized tight, so you can't just bend it. So you
Yeah.
have to gradually stretch it off over time. So part of physio is obviously building up strength and then building up flexion, aka stretching the tendon. when I hit the full 80 degrees, I couldn't do anything beyond that because mechanically I had that wires and screws in my leg that stopped me from doing that. That's when I started to struggle, or you could say the closest thing to struggling throughout the whole process is because for weeks I'd had physio to keep me on track. I'd been making progress. I've been building flexion, building strength, and then I hit a wall. And at that point, I was at total behest of the health service to get me booked in for that surgery. Um, and I had the surgery cancelled on me several times, and that was quite deflating as well. You're really anticipating this operation until you get the surgery. You cannot get your life back, and then it would get cancelled, and that was quite difficult as well. But what people don't realize is that when you talk about learning to walk again, like what they'll tell you in the hospitals, they'll say at week 6, at week 8, you'll be able to walk. You won't be able to walk. You'll be able to start practicing to walk again. And
Yeah.
it's not as straightforward as people make out, but it's been quite an experience. I think I've handled it a lot better than I thought I would. I think I've handled it a lot better than most people would. But I think
And
that's
what was your perception of how you'd have handled it to what you did? What was the difference there that you noticed?
I thought I would have struggled more with losing the size, with losing the weight. So I mean, I've lost nearly 25 kilos in about 3 months, which is like
That's huge.
it's serious. It's a lot of weight, and it's
Yeah.
not. I would fool myself for the first few weeks and be like, oh, you can't see it. Oh, it's maybe just dropped a bit of body fat 'cause I'm not eating. But like now, I mean, at this point in time, I'll put my cards on the table. I can't look in a mirror. I can't take pictures of my, like I've had people suggest to me, why don't you do like weekly check-in pictures like you normally would so you can see the progress. I couldn't take a picture of myself right now because if I looked at it, I don't quite know how I would feel. So I actively avoid my reflection. Like I've gone into the gym in recent weeks and I've seen myself in the mirror and I've been two exercises in, I've just left. So like there's been that
You
kind of
just left,
challenge
but why? Why did you leave?
because I'm like, I've seen myself and I'm like, this is fucking pointless. Like this is pissing in the wind. Which is really, 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 really not like me. And that doesn't happen all the
Yeah.
time. That's happened maybe once, twice,
Have you not got
but
anybody?
it's happened.
You got any close friends that are fucking with you?
Fuck it in what sense?
Like literally fucking slating you into the ground so that you're like, nah, I'm showing up here. You need what they call a toxic masculinity environment. So they're fucking calling. They're like, where the fuck are you going, boy? You've lost 25 kilos and you want to leave after 2 exercises. You're not leaving here.
That's what I need. And it is, and that's what I had with Graham. But
like if you were my pal, I'd be like, bitch, where are you fucking going? Like you're not leaving here.
I think people
you stay here until it gets done because you're tiny in every way.
No, that's what I need. But what I've found is people give you pity, and I fucking hate it. And I hate when someone's like, "Oh, I'm really like, don't like give me a fucking insult, give me a challenge." Like
you'd be slated. They'd be like, "Oh, fucking."
That's
Ethiopian
what I need.
boy. You're the white Ethiopian. You better get in here and get back to white vanilla grilla. You're not leaving here.
Yeah,
like,
I think
fair enough. Your legs don't work, but you're not leaving here until we get a sick arm pump.
Yeah, no, mate, that's you've literally hit the nail on the head. That is what I need. I think that's maybe part of where I live. It's a bit maybe.
No, it's nothing to do with where you live. It's your fucking inner bitch.
Well, yeah,
your inner bitch has got you by the balls. Like, oh, the fucking pity's spilling over and you're raging. You're like, I've lost 25. What's the point?
90% of the times I go in, it is I put on my headphones, and I just fucking lock in, go for it. That's fine.
Yeah.
But there has been that a couple of times where I've gone in and I'm just like, nah, fuck this. But I genuinely think put most people in this situation and the number would be far above 50% of the times that they would go in and just leave.
I mean, it's understandable, and I mean, I think the good thing is that you're honest about it, and it like as a like, if you were like if we were, you know, the gym buddies that went like right, we're taking the gym, I'd be luring you in to tell me all this so I could load up the cannon of abuse.
Yeah.
And
you know how it works.
I'd be loading up. I'd be sitting fucking. I would be in the sniper position, and I'd be luring you in, like, Jack, I
Yeah.
know how you must feel. Have you weighed in today? You fucking
Mm.
scumbag.
Mhm.
You are like the shrink wrapped version. You look like
Yeah.
you're on the heroin diet. The opioids, is it got that bad? Are you taking the leap to the final opioid? You better get in that gym before you fucking go too far.
I'm I can't even argue with you, mate. But when I think back to when I first started this, right? The reason I did it is because I used to get when I was a teenager, I got the piss ripped out of me for being skinny,
Yeah,
and that's what fueled the fire. And it's
yeah.
nothing's changed now. That there would still be that effect now. I think people are maybe a little bit more hesitant about giving me that.
It's the thing.
Uh,
The thing is that's what's wrong with today's nature. Is like,
yeah.
see if you were like, if I was to go and motivate a woman, I would motivate it very different to a man, and
Mm,
especially like if you look at just basic, right, basic understanding of your psychology is this, right? You were introverted, you found the gym, you learned to grow into it, you developed your a lot of your characteristics, your frame, your build, your personality is deeply entrenched in the gym. So you have a
mm,
high affinity and a high connection to how physically active, how physically built you are, makes up a huge part of your perception. You've went through a huge traumatic injury, which has snatched that away from you. So you have
mm.
this battle that goes on between your identity of who you see yourself as and this injury stealing it away. And
The,
the motivation here is
yeah.
easy, and it might not be in vogue, but I would play on your machismo. I would
Mhm.
attack everything about you that is manly. So you're like, fuck that. You would break. You'd be like, I'm not taking that shit. I am not taking this.
Yeah.
You're not going to tell me I can't get in the gym. And I'm like, you're going to crawl to the gym. We need to get you. Do we need to fit a stair lift? I
Yeah.
would fucking crucify you till you came in and you were like, oh, it would give you that energy.
I would very much appreciate it. But here's the thing, right? So I tell you, see when you deal with the health service, right, and you get your diagnosis and you get your
Yeah,
physio work, they're quite negative.
yeah.
I don't believe it's intentional, but it's very no. You will be 6 weeks. No, you won't be able to do this. And that's where I've been throughout this process. Like, well, hang on a fucking minute. And I've gone in 2 3 weeks before it, and I walked in. They would get pissed off that I would walk in with no crutches, but they would tell me you can't be doing that. But I am. I don't need them. I've come in and no, you know what I mean. And I did enjoy the negativity of some of the timelines that they give you because they're very much a
Well,
generic timeline.
you need to remember also that to do it like for most guys, right? Like for any guy out there who's even considering going to the gym represents something very internal, and that's
Mm-hmm.
strength. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean mental strength, inner strength, the strength of developing yourself, the strength for making yourself better, the strength for backing yourself, giving yourself self value, self worth. So strength has much more deeper rooted connotations than people just lifting dumbbells.
Mm-hmm.
So boys are supposed to be strong, and it's great that they want to be strong. They can be strong in many different ways. They can be strong physically, they can be strong mentally, they can be endurance strong, physically strong, emotionally strong. So there's lots of ways that you can tap into that strength. But whichever way you tap into it, it's a great way to develop who you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that you can do, especially for boys, is that they don't like being told what to do, and they don't like being told that they're less than what they can be, right? And that, if you use that well, you can use that as a fire, it's a fuel. You're like, don't really think you're going to be able to do that. And like, I'll fucking show you. Because if any boy who has been told, we don't think you can make the team, we don't think you can make the cut, we don't think you can do 20 push-ups, we don't think you can squat that, whatever it is, like, I'll fucking show you who can do. You're going to tell me that I'm, going to limit myself. And that
It's
is
the
powerful.
it's the ultimate fuel in the fire. Being told you
And they
can't
should
do
like,
something.
and that's what even just listening to, like, the last 30, 40 minutes of your story here, I'm like, this is obvious to me what you need.
Mm-hmm. No, no, you're absolutely right. It's
Because it's that
tough
weird
love.
camaraderie. It's the weird
Uh,
camaraderie because it's coming from the place that somebody wants to drive you to be the very best that you can be, and they'll be there for you when they'll put an arm around you if it's needed. But the majority of the time they're going to be sticking a rocket up your arse telling you to fucking get on with it.
mm-hmm.
With a and that's the sort of push where you go, yeah, somebody knows my buttons.
Yeah, yeah.
Because but it's coming from the place of, hey, look, we want to see you get back to where you're supposed to be as quickly as possible, and if that means a decent amount of abuse, then great.
Mhm. No, I couldn't agree more, mate. Couldn't agree more.
But do they not?
100%.
So where you're from, do they not abuse you properly?
They've gotten a bit timid over the past few years. Nah, I think like I don't know. I think the whole gym scene has changed. Like even 5 years ago, if you walked into a gym, were screaming, everyone's shouting at each other. There's like all this kind of positive reinforcement, but it's quite loud, vocal. People will call it alpha. You don't really hear that now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everyone's just fucking headphones, ear pods in. No one really talks. Everyone does their own thing. It's not it's not as it's not as intense an environment as it once was. You would walk into a gym and you just want to fucking train
Yeah,
because you're hearing people screaming, you're hearing plates banging. Now you walk in, it's just cunts sitting on their phone, speaking to each other, like everyone's tuned out. Like it's not the same, and I think that does rub off on the effect it has on the environment rubs off on the people who are there to try and better themselves and to go far in a sport.
yeah, and I mean the weird thing is I pointed that out. I pointed that out recently. I was like looking down like just a line of people on the cable machines, and there was just they would do a set, go on their phone, do a set, go on their phone, do a set, go on their phone, and it was like they're just fucking zombies. They're just
Yeah,
social media zombies. They're literally being
it's
sucked in.
yeah.
Fucking
Have you
wild.
seen in America? You've seen in America in San Francisco, etc. All the people out their face on fentanyl, and they're just
Hmm.
like absolutely. It's no different. It's just a different version of that. It's a. It's just. They're just mind numbed. But I take it a bit personally when it gets in the way of what I'm trying to do and what I want to do.
Yeah.
Um, it's because it is really obstructive. When you have someone sitting on certain bit of equipment for half an hour, 45 minutes, sitting scrolling TikTok, and they're all scrolling fucking TikTok. It's that you can guarantee what they're doing as well.
Yeah.
TikTok.
And here's the thing is like I mean I was explaining this on the fucking dark and mysterious. There was bits of the dark side of social media. One of the things that I've learned recently is Paul McKenna's hypnotherapy course that was in Mind Valley. So um, I'd been unknown to me. I'd been using sort of a lot of the methodology of hypnosis and not knowing what I was doing. So how I would hypnotize myself, and you're doing some of that with your the stuff that you've done with the sports coaches.
Yeah.
Hypnotherapy is misconstrued because you think it's like weird guys with goatees and fucking pocket watches, and like they're going to get you on the stage dancing like a ballerina or thinking you're a fucking chicken. And there is that
Uh,
element, but hypnosis is pretty incredible because what hypnosis does is it brings your attention to one point where you
yeah.
can block out everything else and focus on one thing. So whenever I'm putting someone into a trance to give them an instruction to rewire what it is that they're doing. So say for instance you've got a behavior pattern and you're basically running a program. So you go,
Mm-hmm.
something triggers this, this is how I behave, and this is the result that I get. And whether you have a problem, which is you are doing something you don't like the outcome of, which is fairly common. A lot of people go and get hypnotized to rewire that. Or say, for instance, you're hitting a glass ceiling where you're like, I think that I can do better, but I'm not really sure how to, how I can get there. Well, we can instruct your subconscious mind to find that answer and
Mm-hmm.
rewire it in there. And it's very, very cool. And what you get is a phenomenal results. But here's the thing is there's a theme of what you would do as a hypnotist or a mentalist where you would appear to be doing magic on people, and they're not.
Mm-hmm.
You're just understanding how the mind works. So let me tell you how a hypnotist does it, and I'm going to overlay it with social media. So a hypnotist will get you to focus on one thing, deepen your state, and then give you an instruction and then another instruction to lead you to an outcome or a place.
Mm-hmm.
So what it'll look like is, let me take your attention, let me feed you some information, and let me get you to an outcome, a desired outcome. So that's the framework. Well, have a look at what social media does. Most people will wake up, they'll go straight on their phone and they'll start scrolling. So what it does is social media will get you to, it'll attract your attention, get you to focus on it. Then the algorithm will keep feeding you more and more and more and more and more dopamine hit, dopamine hit, dopamine hit, dopamine hit, and then lead you to an outcome. Or what we would call as modern day gaslighting. We can get you to an ad, we can get you to a piece of content, we can get you to think a certain way, we can get you to vote a certain way. It's exactly the same principles that a hypnotist or a mentalist would get you to dance like a ballerina or a chicken, or do any number of things. And you look at these people, you go, well, what are you doing? You're just fucking zombies. You're literally like, you might as well stick your fucking dick in the Wi-Fi router, because you're like, that's how far removed you are. You can't even do 2 fucking sets in a row without going on your phone.
It's obsessive. And it's, and most of the time it's nothing important. Like if I'm going to pull my phone out in the gym, it's to do one of two things. It's to change a song because a fucking shite songs come on or something and I need to hype myself up a bit more. Or two, it's to reference a training plan or something. I've got a document on my phone that's got specifics related to that session. That's it. Like I put my phone on do not disturb. People know not to contact me in that time. It's because I'm just not going to answer. You switch off. But the time you spend, if you I've done this experiment before with clients as well, right? If you don't take your phone into the gym, you can be in and out in 45 minutes, an hour. Take it in with you. You're well above 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it's nothing's changed. The volume in the session's the same. The gym's just as busy. Nothing. The scenario hasn't changed. It's just that you've got your phone, and it shows how distracted you get. And it's if you can be. And the annoying thing is these are the same people that question the mechanisms of training. This is why I'm not putting any size on. I'm not fucking doing this. Oh, I need to fucking take. Oh, like I think I need to take some more drugs because this isn't working. Like you're not fucking training. Apply some intensity to what you're doing. That's why.
They've got fucking more oil in them than the Middle East, and they can't get fucking big because they can't get they can't string a set together. And they're like, I don't know what it is, but I just can't get big. I'm like, well, I've got a fucking good reason that because see if you're like this in the gym when you're training, what you like when you need to sleep, what you like when you need to eat, what you doing when you need to focus on like your nutrition. It's like, look, 100%. The signs are obvious. You might as well talk to that fucking wall for all that they'll take in.
If you cannot focus in a gym, which is a very specific focused environment, if you can't apply yourself in there, what are you like in the confines of your own, in the comfort of your own home?
Well, what they'll come out with is Rab from the jail, who said that I should stick to this training plan, and I would do it. And I'm like, well, Rab for the jail hasn't got fucking TikTok and Wi-Fi and unlimited fucking 5G, and is out his tits and dopamine. Rab for the jail is in there 8 hours a day slinging weight,
100%.
And that's what he's doing, and that's the main difference. The environment is very different. From what
maybe that's what I need to. Maybe that's what I need to do, mate. Just get sent down for a few years.
What you need to do is you need to get fucking told, look, bitch, you're not leaving here until we see some fucking size, right? Because you've hurt your wee fucking pissy kneecap and you've got loads of other body parts, so you should still be fucking huge, right? And if you want a pity party, go and ask somebody else with compassion and empathy. There's none of it in here, bitch. There's only gain, size, and fucking mass. What you're allowed is a shite one leg, right? And if that's it, right? That's all you're getting fucking tolerated with. You can have a really shite one leg.
Can I get that on one of those cards, where you pull the thing and it makes the sound?
Aye, that's what we're going to get. Shite one leg, mate. That's all you're allowed. What we want to see is the vanilla gorilla with a fucking ski pole on one side and quadzilla on the other side. I would be like, how ridiculous, how cartoonishly like disproportionate could we make that leg that's fucked to this leg that still can work? Like, how ridiculous could we make it? And then you would make it fun. You go, let's see how outrageous we can make it, because that would be worth taking a picture of. That would be worth doing, where you go, I've got something to aim at.
The annoying thing is that there's a lot of scientific evidence to suggest that actually stimulating the good leg minimises atrophy in the bad leg. So that should be enough to get me in doing it as it is. But
so, and look, where is your pals fucking calling you out, going, look, 2-set fucking Jack here. You better get in there and make this fucking happen. Who's calling you out? Who's holding you to account?
No, I think you're right. I think I need to be having some stern words with them later on.
I would be taking
sort it out.
Who the fuck let me drop 25 kilos? I'm in here watching Forrest Gump whining about my little fucking life and my little shitty leg and how I had the sniper crawl, and you fuckers have let me lose 25 kilos. Where were you when I needed called out?
Fucking right.
Fucking inner
Nah.
bitch has been on a loop.
No.
Have you heard my description of the inner bitch?
No.
Right, so the inner bitch is a feminine energy, right? And the reason that the inner bitch can only be a feminine energy is see the voice in your head that creates doubt and has all the intel of when you cracked before, all the intel on you. It knows when you cracked. It knows what to say, how to say it. Sometimes it's consoling, like a loving parent. Sometimes it's like a fucking nanny. You shouldn't do that. This is dangerous. What is the medical benefit of this? Other times it's like, you've worked hard, Jack. You deserve this time off. You know, you've been through a lot. So it takes on many guises. But the reason that I say that it's an inner bitch and it must be feminine is it remembers the time, the place, and the location. What you said, how you said it, what you were wearing, who was in the room, and that can only be a feminine energy. So it's the inner bitch.
Yeah, keeps receipts.
Keeps receipts. It knows what your expression was, what you were thinking, what your tone was, how you came across. You know what I'm saying.
I like
you know
it.
what I'm talking about.
Like
so that's the inner bitch. And see when you identify your inner bitch, you know this fucker's a saboteur and it's going to convince you to take the weak route. So the warning sign there is that, right, what flavour of inner bitch am I getting? You know, and you go, right, look, if you have an outcome, which is I want to get big, I want to get strong, I want to smash this timeline recovery, and I want called out that I'm not fucking missing what I can do, because I know what I can do. It's really obvious what I can't do, because I've got a fucking leg that doesn't work as well as it should, and it's recovery and so on. What can I do? Right, well, you're going to have an internal battle, and that internal battle is the fucking machismo, Jack, which is, right, I can do X, Y, Z, I can work this, I can go in and smash this, and I can aim for those, but the cue the inner bitch, because it's going to go, well, you know that you should be recovering, and you know that they gave you this, and you can see the battle forming, but one side's going to be on your ear, and the other side's like, right, Jack, cool, the leg's fucked, what can you do?
I think probably something that's quite easy to do as well is when you find out the stuff you can do, right? So certain movements in the gym I can actually do for legs, which I didn't think I'd be able to do. So that's a win in itself. So like adduction, I can do adduction, but I cannot do adduction as heavy as I could before, but I can still do it. But see how tempting it is to just not do it because you can't do it as well as you could previously. But it's identifying the opportunity to flip that, like you've just said, and say, well, hang on a fucking second, you can do it. So as long as you can do it, you can build the capacity to do it as well as you did before. So I think
I would be like, right, listen, dipshit, here's the fucking options. Right, you can be tempted because your inner bitch is saying you need to rest and recover and take care of your leg, and you know, rest and recovery is the way to do it, and so on. It's going to sound like doctorly or motherly and fucking, you know, as soon as you've bit your fingernail too deep, 6 weeks off, rest and recovery and all that shit. You know, the stuff we know is shite, but the inner voice is going to be there. You know, because you feel vulnerable, you feel pissed off, you feel like this bump in the road, so the temptation is high to listen to inner bitch. It's high. Fuck it, I'm going to get Ben and Jerry's and fuck this gym, and I deserve a time off. And it's going to tell you everything you need to hear, and it's going to be strong, right? But you're going to go, right, look, listen, asshole, you can fucking go and get your Ben and Jerry's, but let me ask you this before you go and get 20 quid's worth of shite to get white and fat. Do you want to fucking go and get Ben and Jerry's and feel sorry for yourself and be twice as pissed off as you are now? Because if you think you're fucked off now, how much more are you going to be fucked off after your binge eating and your Netflix and all that? Or, yes, you can't do it as big as you could, but what would be better? Doing it now with what you can lift now, or listening to the inner bitch? You can pick. But where you want to go and the outcome that you want, which one's going to get you there? Because one won't and one will.
No, 100%. And the hardest part is building up the momentum. But once you've got the momentum and you start picking up these habits again, it's actually
what's the
really
number
easy.
one thing you need to do to get momentum? What's the first thing always that you need to do?
Move.
Start. Bingo.
Yeah.
You need to start. So if you're doing anything that doesn't involve momentum and doesn't involve starting, you know it's the inner bitch.
No, it's true. No, I like that analogy a lot. So Ben and Jerry's,
I think Ben and Jerry's are really white, thin translucent, atrophied. You know, I would fuck you. I'd be like, you know what, mate? See when you're going to get your Ben and Jerry's, buy red nail polish and paint your nails because you're a bitch. Right? Shave your fucking leg, keep one leg hairy, and just remember the bitch that you are. Right? Or to save yourself that fucking hole of
Mhm.
disparity, how about you just fucking abduct what you can right now, and you can remain until the next fucking event of the inner bitch. Manly. Which one you
No,
want to be?
100%, 100%. No, I'm on board with that mentality.
Good.
I like
Good.
it.
You should, if you ever need a check, just fucking check in with me and I'll give you a reminder. Because as I said, I missed the Cuban compassion and empathy. My missus is like, she'll say to me, she's like, Gio, why do people pay you exorbitant amounts of money to fucking shout at them? And I was like, well, because I know
That's
what
what
they
they
need.
need. Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
what they
it's
need.
exactly what they need.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
Hmm.
coming from the place that when someone can be told off and shouted at because they know that it's going to get them where they want to go because it came
Hmm.
from a good place. And sometimes we can be caught in our own bullshit. We can listen to ourselves and stuff like that. And sometimes you just need somebody to go, oh yeah, fuck aye, that is actually right.
Yeah,
And
it's
just
a
shake it up a bit.
it's a check yourself moment. It's no, I think I won't struggle to recognise the inner bitch now.
And it's good. Like that's what I'm saying is like I was very fascinated with what you said earlier on when you were saying about like your visualization process, and I knew that it would like me explaining this to you would fit like a glove because it's more of what you know and you know what's worked. So you
It's
go
like
ah,
it's like the next level onto that imagery work actually,
mm,
and it's a means of acting on it as well. Because
yeah,
it's all great being able to identify these things, but if you don't have the knowledge and the know-how to act on it, it's useless.
yeah,
So no,
exactly.
I appreciate you sharing that. That's
You'll know now because you're going to question yourself. You're like, am I Jack the fucking guy, or am I the inner bitch here? Should I like what color should I paint my nails as a fucking reminder that I've bitched out as I cry into my empty tub of Ben and Jerry's of my fucking failed dreams.
I like it. So, see, I don't know if you've got time. There was one thing actually. So the sports psychologist that I worked with, there was something he gave me to do, and it was taken from the PGA, so the golf association. It was essentially buy a bag of golf tees, right? And throughout the day, any negative, well, the idea is that throughout a game of golf, any negative ideas or any negative thought processes that went through your mind, you put a golf tee in your pocket, and then at the end of the game of golf, you'd have to empty your pockets out, empty all the tees on the table,
Mhm.
and explain them. And then after you've explained it, you then be asked the question, because as you explain these things, that's when it sounds ridiculous in your head. When you, at that moment in time, it seems quite reasonable to put that negative thought process in your pocket. But when you unpack it and have to explain it to someone, you realize how ridiculous what you're feeling is, or how you're feeling
Yeah.
is. So we did a similar exercise, and I actually found that to be really, really good. I actually did it with my clients on the run up to a competition prep, and it was quite a good experiment. And the same results transpired that when you actually get people to explain these negative thought processes, they realize how unreasonable they are.
Well, it's like anything. Like if you leave yourself long enough, anybody can rationalize just about anything. I mean, if you
Mm-hmm.
pull a junkie aside and you get them to rationalize like what they do and why they've made these decisions, like in their head it sounds rational, but to the
Mm-hmm.
outside you're like,
What
you've
the
lost
fuck?
your fucking
Yeah.
mind.
Uh.
So anything can be rationalized if if you're in your thoughts long enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
No.
especially if you have a high desire to get a particular outcome, weakness or addiction or whatever it may be. But the
Mm-hmm.
apparatus is in there. Like there's a triad of emotions. There's a triad of a mental operation that we have inside ourselves. It's essentially like the way I describe it is, do you remember when you went in and you had these machines that you put the coin in, like 2 pence typically? You might see them in the McDonald's and things like that. You put the 2 pence in and it would start swirling down. So you put the
Yeah.
2p in, it would
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
swirling down and down, it would drop in. We've got something called the emotional triangle. So the emotional triangle in our mind works like this: whatever you focus on, you get more of, right? But what you focus on will determine your emotion. So if you focus on something, you have a thought and you apply your focus to it, you will get a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So the first part is the focus and thought. The second part is the following emotion. And then that emotion will drive you to take an action of some kind. So there's the three parts: focus and thought, emotion, action. So to describe the negative one first, because people love starting with the fucking negative, because generally that's the habit that they're in, and it looks like this 2p machine. So what you imagine is the 2p machine is you pick the 2p and it's the thought and focus. You stick it in the machine and that drives an emotion, which then drives action, which is swirling it down. So we're going to use negative for this one. So just give me any negative thought or focus or any thought or focus that drove a negative feeling for you, and we'll use it as a template.
I can't walk.
Right. So you can't. Your focus is that you can't walk.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your? So you focus on it, and you think about it. What is the feeling that you associate with not walking?
Helplessness.
Helplessness. What action comes after you feel helpless? Or inaction? It can be inaction or action, but something happens after you feel that.
The action is no action, as in
Exactly. So inaction, you're like, I don't want to take the action because I feel helpless.
Yeah.
Right. So it goes back to, believe it or not, like the triangle goes like this. So this is when it happens. Like I'd call it, it's like a fucking doom loop. So we've put the 2p in the machine, and the thought is, I can't walk. It then takes momentum, which is your emotion. Your emotion then drives you to drop the 2p, and you go, I better not do anything then. And when you don't do anything, you then focus and think about what your inaction in this case was. And then that goes back, you go, well, I'm pretty fucking useless anyway. And what's the point? And why would I even care? Like, why should I even go? Why should I even do anything? What's even the point of going to the gym? So you then focus on that, which then drives an emotion. Right. The next one is, I don't even think I feel even worse than I did because I feel helpless and now useless. So I'm a bodybuilder, and I now can't go to the gym because I don't feel like doing it, and now I'm helpless and useless. And then you see how, like, if you continued through this process, we could run a loop pattern of what would happen. And you say to people, like, you go, well, they'll say things like, well, that's just the way it is. Or I'm just a negative person. You go, okay, but do you know that this machine, you can turn it up the other way? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, right, so this one goes down and it swirls down. Let's reverse it and it swirls up. So, like, for instance, if we could take the same thing about, like, for instance, I can't walk as your current thought, right? So your current thought would be, I can't walk yet. What can I do today? Would be your thought, right? Or your focus would be, what can I do today? So if I can't walk, what can I do? And you might go, well, I could read a book, I could study about that. Like you alluded to earlier on, you started to look at things, you started to take up, interest in other things that you could do. Or like even your gym example, you go, well, I could do abductors today. And you go, well, that's quite good. So you go, well, I've went from I can't walk, but what can I do? And then you focus on what you can do, and that gives you a feeling. You go, yeah, let's do something. And then you do it. And then how do you feel when you do something that you know that you're limited, but you've actually got off your backside? You've decided, you made the decision to do something. You've went and you've driven to do it. Like, what action do you get? Well, the action is, well, I've went and done something pretty productive. And then you go back to your focus and thought, which is, I feel pretty good about that. And that was good because I could have made the decision not to do anything, but I did. And that makes you feel proud and makes you feel that you did something, makes you feel meaningful. It makes you feel purposeful. It makes you feel like you're heading in the direction. I'm not going the direction that at the pace that I would like, but I'm definitely moving. I'm definitely getting momentum. So then imagine that starts to swirl up. You go, well, what else could I do if I can do,
well,
I can
that's
do
it,
my
yeah.
adductors, and it spirals up the way. But you can see that the people are using the machine going down the way because they're choosing the downward path instead of the upward path, and it's all based on what you focus on.
Yeah. I get like, so I probably went both up and down on that. Up far more often than down.
Yep.
But the downward spiral, it's far harder to, it's far easier to stop the upward spiral, if you know what I mean. Like it's not equal how easily you can stop them. But
the resistance is
100%.
the resistance is harder to push it up
Yeah,
the way
yeah,
than the resistance is to push it down the
yeah,
way.
yeah.
So it's much easier. Like it doesn't take the same amount of effort to push it down than it does to
Mhm.
push it up. So
But
that
there's
sounds
but there's reward to be gained, and it's, I suppose, no reward comes without sacrifice. So it's,
yeah.
it makes sense. It's, checks and balances. But
Well, like for instance, the effort on the relative effort by pushing up is significantly higher, but the resistance is significantly lower to push it
Mhm.
down with much
Yeah,
more detrimental outcome.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
where that's why people tend to fucking
yeah.
they come to me and I describe it like this. It's like people go, you go, oh, my life's shit. I don't like it. I hate my results. I hate my boss. I hate this. Can't do anything. And it sounds like they're doing this.
Mhm.
You go, okay. So why do you think your life's You say, well, tell me what do you do in a day? They go, I
Mhm.
do this and I get up and I doom scroll and what's the point going to the gym and I'll start next week or then you go, look, no wonder you're not getting the results that you want because you're not doing the things that
Yeah.
you need to do. Because it's
Mhm.
much easier to go down because there's less resistance. There's not the same resistance going up the way. The resistance is
Yeah.
higher to go up. But when you start, remember what we said? If you start,
Mhm.
guess what happens? It starts to feed. And if you get over the initial inertia, then you get that spiral going. And
Yeah.
then it's very difficult to come off that because that's what's happened with you with your bodybuilding. Was it Graham? He said that
Great.
you started with Graham and it's and it's you've had that taken away from you, and what you've done is you fell back into your old habits of going up more than you went down, but the
Mhm.
temptation to go down has been easy or has been highly tempting because of how you feel, and you're in a bit
Mhm.
showing up and talking you into it.
No, it's 100% true. I seen a very good analogy the other day about it was someone essentially alluding to falling out of a plane and landing in the ocean. Like you've got your life jacket, so you can just stay afloat, but at some point you're gonna have to swim.
Yeah.
Um, and I like that because a lot of that can be related to the whole kind of experience I've gone through. But um, yeah, a good one I thought.
Yeah, this was definitely true. How did you see when you were saying you dropped 25 kilos? Like, did you cut your food intake or?
Nah, well, because of the pain meds, you've like, well, one, the trauma post surgery, you're in so much pain. Like it is bucket. It's like, but it's like a pain cocktail. Um, so the medications you take to try and subside the pain, they just absolutely fuck your appetite. Like I had to switch off dihydrocodeine to tramadol because it literally paralyzes your gut. I ate like one meal a day for about the first 10 days. So you're talking like 700 calories a day for almost 2 weeks, and
Wow.
then you're not moving as well because you're stuck. For the first 4 weeks, your legs in full extension, so you can't bend it at all. So you're literally stuck
Yeah.
lying down. So you're not moving. So what I mean, your BMR kind of drops off, and your demand for energy isn't what it was. Um, but you definitely notice once you start moving more, picking it back up, getting back in the gym, appetite just shoots through the roof, mate. So like, as much as that's fallen off, I've got so much confidence that it'll just come straight back on, mate. Because you can't lose. That's a huge chunk of weight to lose in a short amount of time. Do you know what I mean? It'll come back. I know it'll come back, and I actually think it'll come back
I should have
quite
never
quick.
been allowed. Like, if you need to. I want to meet your pals, and we should arrange like a fucking sit down with them because we need to have a discussion. They all need to fucking harden the fuck up here and get a
Too
bit.
nice.
We need a bit of toxicity in there.
Aye, fucking right. Do you know what everyone says, right? The one phrase I found everyone says the same thing, and I know they mean it from a good place, and I'm not slating anyone for saying that at all. I appreciate people who try to be nice and try to be helpful, but the one thing everyone says that's not helpful is that you'll get it back. Like, yeah, okay, I know I will, but like you'll get it back. It's fine. It comes across as quite dismissive, but people don't
You
mean
know what
it to come
my
across like that.
strategy would be? I would look at you when I would wait. I would time it until you were thinking about 2 sets in. You were ready to go. I would say, I don't think you're ever going to get this back. I mean, it's
Aye, that,
possible, but
yeah.
if see, unless you put in the
Mhm,
hours, it's
mhm.
not happening.
That's what
I,
I've
I think
thrived off.
I think it's
Yeah,
slipping away from you.
yeah. No, but it's so true. And then, like I said,
Yeah.
the NHS. That's why I actually enjoyed. People were asking me about the physio I was going to, and I would tell them what I would get told. And the physios are great; they're brilliant. I'm not at all slating them. They're actually they're brilliant, but again, quite negative. But that's what I love the most about it, is that negativity, because it's something to try and prove wrong. Um, like you say,
See,
it's
I've
what we
got
need.
like for people that can't get their head around this, right? I'm going to tell you about my two pals as a sort of cautionary tale about what we are discussing here, and see if it rings true with you.
Mm-hmm.
I've got two pals that are polar opposites. So under like have like people think getting the most out of people is like a one size fits all. It's like a skeleton key. It isn't. What you need to understand is the nature of someone. And I've got two friends that are polar opposites. So I have one friend that if you gave him any, like even remotely a sense of a compliment, he would start to come out in hives. He'd be like, oh, like he needs that. He needs to be told. Like you can't
Mm-hmm.
tell him he's shit enough. Like you, if you need to you need to say you've done really, really well, but you would need to translate it going, you're not as shit as you were yesterday. Something not like that. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
he needs that negative reinforcement. And I've got
Mm-hmm.
another friend that regardless of how shit he's done, you need to tell him the sun shines out his arse.
Yes.
And you need to go, like, for instance, like say if you had a like a hard day, if they'd had a tough session, whatever that may be, you would, one of them you would need to go, look, you got through that by the skin of your teeth. You
Mm-hmm.
need to up your game. Like you just made it through. So I think you need to go and have a good hard look in the mirror and see if you want this enough. Is it because you just made it and no more? The
Mm-hmm.
fair play you did, but only just. And that would be
Yeah.
enough. That would be enough. That'd be enough to set off that kind of like the drive, because it's no
Mm-hmm.
motivation, it's drive
Yeah.
to get that little bit more. And then if I had the same session with the same friend, like the other friend,
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, man, I don't think anybody else could have got through this but you. It's amazing that you got through it. And it'd be like, oh, and it's just
Buzzing.
understanding that psychology, because it would be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I've done amazing and I can't believe, like, it was hard and it was grim
Mm-hmm.
and somebody's recognized that I was able to get through it.
See, it's a slightly different scenario, right? But see, in bodybuilding, and I'm going to say this about female bodybuilders, because this is,
Mhm.
and it's just because that's where I've seen it the most, right?
Yep.
But I find a lot of females in bodybuilding really positively reinforce each other, right? But to the point where it can be quite counterproductive. So you're going to do great, you're going to smash it, oh, you're definitely going to win, you're going to do this, and over months, if you think of a competition prep, you're 4 or 5 months, you tune someone's brain. If every day they're hearing this, you're going to win, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you de-incentivize them to push harder,
Mhm.
in one aspect. But then when the time comes and they don't get the result that everyone's told them they're going to get, they're really not happy. And I've seen girls crying backstage over it. I've seen emotions running really high, and it's, 100% it's your peers and your social circle are to blame for this. It's not actually your
Yep.
fault. I have seen that a lot, um, in bodybuilding.
I would be telling them it's their fault. I'd say
Yeah.
something like, "It is your fault.
Well, yeah,
Ultimately, it's
probably.
your fault. You don't fucking win, and you're not good enough, and that's your
Yeah,
fault
yeah.
because you
But
didn't push
like,
hard enough." Like, and it's different if, like, and I would preface that it's different if they've went all out and
mhm,
they've went at full attack mode and they've done everything possible and they just didn't get the result. You're like, fair enough. Like, hat off to you. You did the most that you
mhm,
could. Just gather it back up and go again, and then like recalibrate. See if you can get a bit more out of yourself. Where could you have got any improvement? What could you have done? You're wiser, smarter, stronger than you were before you went into this. What would you do again, and what would you change? And let's look
yeah,
at that. And then that's one side of it. But if you know that it's been a process of they've just bought into the hype of their pals hyping them up, and they've then took the foot off the gas, I would call them right. I'd give them both barrels. But you've listened to them, you listened to their shit, you took the foot off the gas, you fucking had the cheat meal, you slept in the diet, you went off plan, you didn't push as hard as you could have. So listen, the buck stops with you.
mhm,
You had an opportunity to be the best that you could have been, and you let it slide. And
yeah.
that's nobody's fault but you. If you want to go at this again, then you need to make a massive commitment now that you're not going to do what you did this time round. And if you're ready, you'll get the back and you'll get pushed, but you need to make that call. You know?
No, totally, 100%. You do see it a lot. I mean, it is. I think it's people think they're doing well by giving you this positive reinforcement, but it doesn't work like that.
No. I mean, it's like that thing. It's broad strokes, you know. And I think when you're wanting the most out of someone, like I'd describe it like people are a bit like, but what it looks like in my mind is, have you ever seen the combination padlocks?
Yeah.
You know, it's like you need to
Mm-hmm.
put the combination in. People are like that. Like they all look like padlocks, so they all look the same, but
Mm-hmm.
they all have different combinations.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
So
that's good. Good. Yeah.
you need to unlock them. You need to know what their combination is, and
Mm-hmm.
their combination isn't positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. It's usually a mixture, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, what are they like? What drives them? How do they operate? How do they how do they derive their drive? You know, what's their motivations? What's their factors? What are they looking to work towards? What are they working away from? And that's how you shape. Like that's how you can feel what that combination is, and you go,
Mm-hmm.
we know how to unlock this one.
Got ya.
And
Yeah.
you go bang. You can hear it because you go tick tick click, and you're like, gotcha. And that's the thing that you can turn, because you can turn that screw where you know how to get them to up their game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they've maybe like exerted themselves too much, to just shift the perspective. It's no ease up, because that doesn't work with people that are high performance. Easing up's not in their vocabulary. Easing up's more like, right, they're overextended in something, and they just need
Mm-hmm.
the perspective to be recalibrated, and you need to know how to shape that so that they go, got you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the power of knowing the combination,
Mm-hmm.
because you know what it's like. You turn the screw just that way, but you need to know how to turn the screw the other way to get the most out of them.
Yeah. No. Very true.
It's cool how bodybuilding is much more a mental sport than it is a physical sport, because it's known for its physicality, but it's a huge mental side, isn't it?
Well, if you break it down to what it is, it's you essentially sacrifice most aspects of a normal life. You pretty much sacrifice most aspects of a social life for, in most instances, uh, if you win first place, you get no financial reward. There's, you know what I mean, there's no, you don't really get to travel the world with it. There's very few instances where the reward is, in my opinion, for most people, worth the investment.
Yep.
Um, so you do really have to. It does really have to mean something to you, um, to be able to put in the work to go far in it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's funny because I had this conversation with Adam. I go out and cycle, so the cycling attire is not what you would call your typical kind of attractive attire.
Uh,
It's generally tight fitting, so that it's aerodynamic.
yeah.
As guys, generally you're opening yourself up for a slating, which I take well, because I give as good, like I take as good as I get.
Hmm.
You know, and you can imagine what it's like showing up as someone that goes to the gym, and like you're going around with these guys that are fucking skinny and giving them a hard time on a bike. They're like, what is this freak of nature? So it's just amplified with this tight clothing. You know, and the conversation came up with Adam, bit back and forth, and he's like, you know, it's fucking a bit suspect, somebody that goes around fucking riding bikes, shaving the legs and wearing lycra. I was like, you know, and I thought, this is fucking rich coming for you. You stand in a thong,
I
covered in
know.
fake tan and
Fake tan. I
oil,
know. Yeah.
in front of fucking other men to be judged.
Hmm. It's yeah. I don't think us bodybuilders were in any position to slate the masculinity behind any other sport.
Uh,
Because when you
but I mean,
break down what we do,
I do admire it, because I mean, like as I said, I've never went full tilt like the likes of Adam, but I've had enough of a experience of what it's like to, you know, get strict on your diet, to
hmm,
train like obsessively, to be so regimented and structured. And I get it. It's so much a mental aspect, because it's
hmm,
24/7.
it's a full
Like
time job. Yeah.
it's beyond a full-time job. It's like you're 24/7. Like what you
Hmm.
put in your body, how you do it. Like it's not what you do in one meal, 1 week. It is a sequence for 10, 12, 14, 60, sometimes even 24 weeks. What you're doing over
Hmm.
that period of time, your consistency, your dedication, your clarity, your mental focus, your nutrition, your training, and you know, all these things will culminate in an article that you're going to present.
Hmm.
It's
No, I totally agree. It's
hugely,
yeah. Hmm.
it's not for the faint-hearted.
No, not at all. Not at all. But it's I I love it, and I think that's why it's easy for me to do it because I love it. It's what I've always done. I've tried other things. I've tried fucking playing golf. I've tried playing rugby. I used to play shinty up here, and nothing ever struck a chord. And I think it's because it was just the element of those other sports. It was, for example, when I played football, it was when you were playing football, that was it, or when you had training.
Yeah.
All the other, all the time in between. So what do I do with this? Whereas with bodybuilding, it's got my full investment. It literally is every single minute of every single day, and that's what I love about it. I think it takes a certain type of person to love something that takes up that much of your time.
It's not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure.
No.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you very much. It's been good.
We should do another one of these. We should do a full-blown conspiracy theory one. Now that
I feel it. Yeah.
some serious intel.
Aye. Let me arm myself and educate myself and come back, and we'll.
I've got a good book that you should read. You know, I know you've got some time in your hands, so I'll send you the details. The author is a friend of mine, and he's done a serious amount of work on this book. It's called 180 Degrees. He's it's unteaching you all the lies that you've been taught, and everything is basically an inversion of what you've been told. And I got the book. I got a signed hard copy of the book, and it came, and it was Jack. It was enormous.
I was going to say it must be a pretty fucking big book.
I am never going to read that. Where am I going to find the time to read this book? It's like 700 and odd pages long, and I read the first chapter, and that was me. It was like, oh my! Hooked. And it's written so well that although the topics can be, you know, tricky, you know, they can be. It's like, I call it mental abrasion, because it's like you're rubbing sandpaper on your brain, but it's so well written and so well articulated that it makes it much more easy to read. Something that wasn't written as well about the same topics would be very much. It would be disproportionately more difficult to read. So the flow and how it goes together is pretty incredible. It's got the references, the videos, where everything, you know, all points of reference. So it's not just a subjective, you know, book, but well worth a read, especially if you want to. We'll go full tilt on it. I don't know if you've seen the one with me and Mikey. We took the AI with Gork, and we were like, "What's the 10 conspiracy theories that became conspiracy fact in the last 10 years?" And I was like, "Man, we need to get them in, because we're running out of conspiracy theories. Like, they're coming true that quick that we're going to run out of them soon."
This is what we're saying about David Icke, Alex Jones, all these people who were deemed ludicrous, and now look at them. Yeah, they're more like prophets. Yeah,
they're definitely, you know, as you said, the prophetic in terms of some of the things that they've said way ahead of time. It makes you wonder where they're getting the info from, like what divine source, where do they, like what extra sensory perceptions have they got, because they're, you know, their strike rate's pretty incredible. They do better than the Economist that Werner talked about.
Have you seen that? Have you seen the book about it's to do with Barron Trump? It's his book.
This is the time travel, the theory of him being a time traveller, because the book was written in 1894.
Aye, but his dad have you read into any of the passages in it?
I've only seen a few of them. I've not read the book, but I've seen the few where it talks about.
Yeah, have a read and then let me know what you think, and you'll be like, "What the fuck?" Like it. I've got a lot of question marks over it. Like,
well, if you've got any of the
coincidence
passages, send them over. I'll take a look, because the ones that I've seen is like, I know what you mean. It's the same as the one about the coronavirus. The book was in 1984, I think. 1984, 1987, talks about like world pandemic. You know, everybody's needing to be, you know, distanced. And the book was written in the 80s. It actually names it as a coronavirus.
Yeah, it's. I'll send you the X post that I seen that took it took passages from it, and it's like, what the fuck.
I'll take a look. That'll be good. And we'll get you back.
But no, send us that book. Send us that book, mate. That'd be good.
I'll send you over. You can take a look.
No, appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure having you on. Thanks for coming on. I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of Mount Mindset. We went and had Jack Gunn on. bodybuilding, chance encounter with a famous Scottish bodybuilder who was a star in the scene. Made a chance encounter to move into the gym, the area that Jack was in. Pivotal time as a young teen, sort of coming into the sport, taking her under his wing and then making a leap frog jump. He had a great run in terms of the shows, getting some wins, getting them under his belt. It took Jack from being an introvert, and starting to find himself, build his character, and really sort of developed this love of a sport that he could be dedicated to and that he could really sink his teeth into. And he went from strength to strength, so much so that I came across his path with the heavy duty gym wear. Shout out to Ollie, and seen if anybody hasn't been on Jack's page, go and check it out. You'll see just literally from the posts how much improvements this guy's made to his physique, and despite being whiter than my hoodie, he was in incredible shape. So he, is a testament to what you can do with hard work and dedication. But more so that it's having the awareness that what I could take from speaking to Jack today was the awareness of himself reaching out to a sports psychologist, using the tips and tools of his mind to further progress his improvement. And it was a bit of a foretelling that he would need these skills that he's used really well in his road to recovery, because he's recovering from a really significant injury that would put people in a real negative path. It'd be easy and understandable to see how they could fall into this trap. And I think what we covered off today is the power of your mind and how you can actually steer and guide your outcomes through the power of what you focus on. And Jack was really good at showing and being honest about how vulnerable he felt and how helpless he felt, and went over like how it's important that when you notice that, you get a grip of it. And he's definitely got a handle on it. And I think what we covered off today was the way in which you can develop that, because when you do have something that's stopping you or prohibiting you from doing the thing that you love or want you pursue, it doesn't mean that you're down, it doesn't mean that you're out, it just means that you can divert that energy and focus on what you can do. And I'm looking forward to seeing Jack progress, see how he'll develop from here. Be sure to check out the show notes and give him a follow. And we'll definitely get him down here for a in-person recording in the studio. And if you want him on a conspiracy theory episode, let us know. Give us some comments. Give us the conspiracy theories that you've got. What do you want us to cover? Let us know in the comment section. So you'll be seeing the clips on all the social medias. We'll tag Jack in and collaborate with him so you can follow along. And hope you tune in for the next edition, where you'll see how far he's came, and we expect to see that 25 kilos back on immediately, and that his pals have stepped up their game in a bit of the toxic masculinity arena, because sometimes it pays not to be too nice. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Be sure to follow us along, and from me this week, that's a wrap.